Spelljammer Academy, REALMSPACE SORTIE. This adventure, designed for 3 to 7 third-level characters, is the third in a series of 4 adventures. The adventure begins at Spelljammer Academy, which is located on the planet Toril, the world of the Forgotten Realms setting. From there, the characters enter wild space and travel to the distant planet Hakatha, the outermost world in the wild space system known as REALMSPACE, to retrieve an adamantine meteorite. Background: as basic training at Spelljammer Academy comes to its conclusion, the characters are required to complete their first mission aboard a spelljamming ship. As luck would have it, orders have come down for them to embark on a retrieval mission. While confidence in the cadets' abilities is high, the recent discovery of a spy in their midst has the Academy's faculty on high alert. For this reason, a staff member is coming along to supervise and make sure nothing prevents the character recruits from completing their mission. That staff member is Petty Officer Winston Ryback. The spy is a recruit named Mikan Havastance, who waits until the opportune moment in the adventure to strike. Until that time, he acts no differently than any other young recruit. Overview: this adventure takes approximately 2 hours to play and is split into 3 parts. Part 1: Tyrant Trap. The recruits are taken to a tyrant ship that has been divested of its original complement of beholders. Once aboard, the recruits must install a spelljamming helm on the tyrant ship's command deck, where a nefarious trap awaits them. Part 2: Like Clockwork. The recruits begin their trek across wild space, only to discover that their new ship has stowaways. A fight erupts between the recruits and some Clockwork horrors hiding under some wreckage. Part 3: Fire in the Galley. The recruits must save the ship from a fire on the tyrant ship cargo deck. Magma methods hint at the presence of a potential saboteur, though further investigating may turn up conflicting evidence. Adventure hooks. Spelljammer Academy REALMSPACE SORTIE follows directly after the events of Spelljammer Academy Trial by Fire. In this adventure, the characters are given their first assignment: retrieving a meteorite of precious adamantine from Hakatha, a distant disc-shaped world. The characters, having undergone training exercises, have been charged with commandeering a vacant tyrant ship for their real first mission. Others are either fresh recruits or freelancers hired by the faculty. Part 1: Tyrant's Trap. The characters are roused from their slumber and are given a mission: travel to the planet Hakatha and retrieve a meteor comprised of adamantine. Get moving, people. Describe the following to begin the adventure. The day began early at 4 bells as you were awakened by Bosun Tartot in the most discourteous fashion. Dodging thrown garbage cans, you gear up, ate a hasty breakfast, and were immediately commanded to the deck of a hammerhead ship called the Flighty Floundling. As soon as you board the ship, it rises into the air towards wild space. An adamantine meteor has struck the spire on Hakatha, says Tartot, and you lot are going to recover it. The bad news is that Hakatha is populated solely by beholders and their kin. The good news is that an empty tyrant ship drifts above Toril, waiting for you to crew it, though you'll need to install a spelljamming helm on the command deck to make the ship fly. Travelling aboard this beholder vessel, you should be able to reach the spire without attracting the unwanted attention of other tyrant ships patrolling Hakathan space. We'll drop you off with Petty Officer Winston Ryback, who will ensure you don't go hungry. He'll command the deckhands Mikan Havastance, KRIK'LIT, and PFFRED. You'll need to identify who among you is in command of the mission, as well as who commands the ship. A word of warning: the tyrant ship is made of stone, so don't try to land it in water. You'll sink like a rock. KRIK'LIT, Thri-kreen Carpenter's apprentice. A Thri-kreen, KRIK'LIT, is quiet and brooding, often preferring solitude over the company of her fellows. Her glossy black chitin is mottled with patches of white, and her eyes are bright, vivid green.
I am here to do my job, not to make friends.
PFFRED, Plasmoid Deckhand. You'll be hard-pressed to find a more excellent whistler than the pale green Plasmoid PFFRED. His jaunty tunes can be heard on nearly every deck. Fred is also one of the few crew members who appreciates Petty Officer Ryback's cooking.
There's nothing like seeing full sails, stars in the sky, and a clean deck, especially if you have friends with you.
The flighty foundling docks alongside the Tyrant ship, which looks like a gigantic stone-carved beholder floating in orbit above Toril. You're dropped unceremoniously into the Tyrant ship cargo deck, along with a crate of supplies, a navigational map, and a shiny new Spelljammer helm. Petty Officer Ryback pulls up the rear, wearing a backpack laden with cooking implements. Pots clang and clatter as he turns and waves goodbye to the flighty foundling, which has already set its course back to the Academy. Tyrant ship features. The Tyrant ship has the following features: dimensions and terrain. Unless otherwise noted, the ceiling in the chambers within this vessel are 20 feet high. Since the entire ship was constructed using disintegration rays, the surface of the floors, walls, and ceiling are smooth and featureless. Climbing a vertical surface is difficult without climbing gear or magic, requiring a successful DC 25 strength athletics check. Lighting. The only light is what the characters bring with them. Gravity plane. The gravity plane for the Tyrant ship runs midway through its roughly symmetrical mass. This means that where you're standing in any given room can change depending on which deck you happen to be on. For example, the floor of the holodeck is the bowl-shaped surface nearest to the command deck. Tyrant Ship Map. More information regarding the Tyrant ship can be found on the map. Additionally, a second map of the ship is provided for players as a player handout, with tips for navigating its interior and situating the spelljamming helm. Non-player character information. Petty Officer Winston Ryback takes command of Mikan, KRIK'LIT, and Fred, and puts them to work unpacking gear as described in the equipment list, taking inventory, and setting up a makeshift galley on one of the cargo deck's chambers. Petty Officer Ryback keeps a weather eye on the characters and serves mostly an advisory role throughout the mission. Feel free to use him as a means of providing hints and guidance. If the characters get over their heads in a fight, Petty Officer Ryback can back them up at range using his musket. He uses the GIF stat block, though his longsword attacks are made with a great cleaver that deals the same amount of damage. Equipment list. The following equipment is transferred from the flighty foundling to the Tyrant ship. 1 climber's kit per character, hammers 1 per character, 100 pitons, 5 100-foot lengths of hempen rope, 2 mess kits, a portable cooking surface, 2 barrels of water, 5 flasks of cooking oil, 2 chests containing fresh foodstuffs, a chest containing 150 days' rations, 5 lanterns with continual flame spells cast on them, half a cord of pre-cut firewood, 10 potions of healing, each one in a metal flask, sending stone. Bosun Tartot has its mate. Installing the helm, Petty Officer Winston Ryback instructs the characters to place the spelljamming helm on the Tyrant ship's command deck, even though the helm can function anywhere on the ship. Getting the helm to the command deck will take a bit of work, given that the Tyrant ship's access shafts are designed for hovering beholders. Characters can use the climbing kits, pitons, and ropes to create an anchored rope ladder that allows them to easily traverse an access shaft. Assuming they follow this course of action, no ability checks are required to climb the shaft. It simply takes time and effort. Roll 2d4 plus 2 to determine how many hours it takes. Halve the time if the characters devise a clever way to accomplish the work more quickly. Regardless of how the characters get the spelljamming helm on the command deck, a nefarious trap awaits them upon their arrival there. This soon-to-be-described trap was left behind by the Tyrant Ship Beholder crew before they abandoned the vessel. Spin Cycle Trap. The first time a creature enters any of the chambers on the command deck, a trap activates, causing the ship to rapidly spin end over end for 1 minute. When the ship starts to spin, have each character roll initiative. Effect. On initiative count 20, each character aboard the spinning ship must make a DC 15 dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the character takes 7 or 2d6 bludgeoning damage and is knocked prone. On a successful save, the character takes half as much damage and isn't knocked prone. Countermeasures. Characters can contend with the trap in various ways, including the following. Brace, brace, brace. As an action, a character can make a DC 15 Strength Athletics check to try to brace themselves to keep from getting tossed about. If the check is a failure, no benefit is gained, and the action is wasted. If the check is successful, the character has advantage on their next dexterity saving throw against the trap, and takes no damage if the saving throw is successful. Deactivate Trap. A character on the command deck can take an action to fiddle with arcane control panels embedded in the walls, pressing buttons and hoping for a good result. In this case, have the character roll a d10. On a 10, the trap deactivates. Alternatively, the character can use an action to study the controls and make a DC 20 Intelligence Arcana check. If the check is successful, the character figures out how to shut down the trap and can use their next action to do so with an automatic success. Magic. A character who can hover is unaffected by the trap, so long as no hard surfaces are in the character's space. A character who is under the effect of a Featherfall spell can be knocked prone by the trap, but takes no damage from it. Roll with it. As an action, a character can make a DC 15 Dexterity Acrobatics check to try to roll with the spinning ship, while avoiding collisions with hard surfaces. If the check is a failure, no benefit is gained, and the action is wasted. If the check is successful, the character has advantage on the next dexterity saving throw against the trap, and takes no damage if the saving throw is successful. Non-player characters on Spin Cycle. As soon as the ship starts to spin, Petty Officer Winston Ryback activates magical tattoos on his arm that allows him to cast the Featherfall spell once. The tattoo then vanishes. If Mikan, KRIK'LIT and Fred are still with him, the spell affects them as well. If they're not with him, assume that when the spin cycle ends, they are all unconscious but stable at 0 hit points. They can each be fed a potion of healing from the equipment brought on board. Wrapping up. Once the characters have disabled or survived the spin cycle trap, they can place the spelljamming Helm in any of the command deck's chambers. A spellcasting character can then attune to the Helm. If no character can attune to the Helm, Mikan Haverstance volunteers to serve as the ship's spelljammer. Otherwise, Mikan keeps quiet and sticks with Petty Officer Ryback. Part 2. Like Clockwork. This encounter begins when the characters investigate strange sounds coming from the Tyrant Ship hollow deck. The sounds begin after the ship is well underway and millions of miles from home. Any character on the command deck who has a passive wisdom perception score of 13 or higher hears the clank of metal on stone coming from the hatch in the middle of the floor of the deck. A character who is within 5 feet of the hatch hears the sound automatically. Any character who passes through the hatch experiences mild vertigo, the result of passing through the Tyrant ship's gravity plane. Holodeck Havoc. Describe the holodeck as follows. The deck is one large bowl-shaped chamber containing several large piles of mechanical parts, with many more parts strewn across the floor. Several partially disassembled autognomes are among the wreckage, and picking them apart are 3 insectile creatures made of gleaming metal. 3 clockwork horrors are methodically salvaging pieces and parts from dead autognomes to construct a 4th clockwork horror, which is only half assembled. Once these creatures notice the characters, describe the following. The insectile automatons menace you with rotating saws that extend from their forelimbs. They appear to speak to each other, using clicking noises that seem oddly familiar. The Clockwork horrors are speaking Thri-kreen to one another, so Thri-kreen characters understand what they are saying as they attack. The creatures mockingly praise the characters for bringing a Spelljammer Helm into the Tyrant Ship, so the horrors can take command of the vessel once all the characters are dead. Autognome Survivor. Once the Clockwork horrors have been defeated, the characters can search the wreckage scattered throughout the hollow deck. Any character who does so can make a DC 11 Wisdom Perception check. On a successful check, the character finds a survivor buried under one of the debris piles. An autognome named WIZPOP. WIZPOP, Autognome Survivor. WIZPOP and 6 other autognomes served the beholders that crewed the Tyrant Ship. After the beholders abandoned the ship, the autognomes were attacked by Clockwork horrors. WIZPOP, whose name is etched in gnomish on a little brass plaque bolted to their chest, suffered vocal cord damage as well as other structural damage. The autognome has 6 hit points remaining, can't speak, and makes occasional whirring, hissing, and popping noises. WIZPOP stops making these strange noises and regains the ability to speak once all their hit points are restored. A character can try to repair WIZPOP using spare autognome parts and tinkerer's tools. To find the right parts, a character must spend 10 minutes searching through the debris on the holodeck and succeed on a DC 15 Intelligence Arcana check. Once the parts are found, a character who is proficient with tinkerer's tool can use the parts and the tools to make repairs. At the end of each hour of repairs, WIZPOP regains 1d6 hit points. WIZPOP will dotingly follow friendly characters while trying to stay out of harm's way. Shh. Treasure. Lying next to WIZPOP is a small iron coffer, latched but not locked, that contains 5 pearls, worth 100 gold pieces each, and a case that contains a spell scroll of rope trick. Wrapping up. Once the characters have had enough fun on the holodeck, proceed with part 3 of this adventure. Part 3. Fire in the Galley. A fire has erupted on the cargo deck where Petty Officer Ryback has set up his galley. Smoke from the fire spreads from the cargo deck to the holodeck, but doesn't cross the ship's gravity plane, and can't be detected on the command deck or the meditation deck. Fire alarm. None of the characters should be on the cargo deck when this scene begins. Everything is settled into relative peace and quiet. Then, without warning, Micken climbs out of the access shaft you've been using to move between decks, his hair disheveled and his clothes reek of smoke. He's breathing hard from his climb and appears to be having difficulty speaking between laboured gasps of breath. Though winded and fatigued, Micken is unharmed. When one or more characters approach him, he croaks out, "Fire! In the galley! Out of control! Must save others!" Cargo deck conflagration. Micken follows the characters as they head to the cargo deck to combat the fire, as does WIZPOP if the characters found repaired the autognome. The characters arrive to find the cargo deck filled with thick smoke. Rules for the smoke are as follows. Smoke inhalation. Any creature that needs to breathe must make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw whenever it starts its turn on the cargo deck. The saving throw is made with advantage if the creature's nose and mouth is covered with a damp cloth. If the saving throw is a failure, the creature gains 1 level of exhaustion. Visibility. Visibility on the cargo deck is reduced to 10 feet. Creatures and objects beyond that range are heavily obscured. Elemental meddling. The chamber containing the galley is the source of the fire, which Micken set using 2 spell scrolls, a glyph of warding cast at 4th level, and conjure minor elementals. The glyph of warding was triggered when Petty Officer Ryback activated his portable cooking surface. The fire spread with the help of 4 magma mephits. The GIF Petty Officer managed to slay one of the mephits before succumbing to fire damage and smoke inhalation. When the characters reach Petty Officer Ryback's dead body, 3 magma mephits attack them. Due to their elemental nature, the mephits aren't as hindered by the smoke. They can see clearly out to 20 feet, and creatures and objects beyond that range are only lightly obscured. Running the non-player characters. As the characters defeat the last of the mephits, KRIK'LIT and PFFRED get the fire under control by expending half of the group's water supply. Each one of them has 3 levels of exhaustion from smoke inhalation. While KRIK'LIT and PFFRED focus on putting out the fire, Mikan passes out water-soaked cloths that everyone can wrap around their noses and mouths, giving them advantage on saving throws to resist the effects of smoke inhalation. If WIZPOP is present, the traumatized Autognome watches the scene unfold, but takes no actions unless it is given a direct order from a character. Smoke inhalation isn't a problem for WIZPOP, who doesn't breathe. Aftermath. The smoke begins to clear once the fire is extinguished, allowing characters to survey the damage without having to worry about smoke inhalation. The potions of healing and the sending stone survive the fire and can be easily retrieved, as can the chest of rations. Depleted supplies. The following equipment was consumed by the fire, or expended putting out the flames. Portable cooking surface, 2 barrels of water, 5 flasks of cooking oil, 2 chests containing fresh foodstuffs, half a cord of pre-cut firewood. Sifting through the ashes. Any character who searches the cargo deck for clues can make a DC 13 intelligence investigation check. If the check is a failure, the character only knows that the fire started near Petty Officer Ryback's portable cooking surface. If the check succeeds, the character ascertains the following. Cause of the fire. Although the fire originated from Petty Officer Ryback's portable cooking surface, the surface is incapable of producing an explosion big enough to cause such a conflagration, nor could it summon the magma methods. Magical origin. The fire was likely started by a magic spell, perhaps a spell cast on or near Petty Officer Ryback's portable cooking surface. The methods were either summoned by the same spell or by another spell. Questioning the non-player characters. KRIK'LIT and PFFRED have no clue how the fire started. They remember hearing an explosion in the galley, followed by Petty Officer Ryback screaming in pain and barking orders at them. KRIK'LIT and PFFRED did as they were told, and opened the barrels of water while Petty Officer Ryback battled the methods. Mikan denies knowing who or what started the fire, but is the only non-player character cadet who has any magical talent, making him the most likely suspect. A detect thought spell, or similar magic, can reveal his guilt. A character can try to force a confession from Mikan, doing so with a successful DC 13 Charisma Intimidation check. If the truth comes out, Mikan explains that he was recruited by a Mercane to set up a trap for Petty Officer Ryback. The Mercane gave Mikan 2 spell scrolls to set the trap. Mikan expected Petty Officer Ryback would be hurt, but not killed. Although he doesn't know the Mercane's name, Mikan reveals that he was promised enough money to set him and his equally young fiancée up for life. Mikan surrenders to the characters at this point, throwing himself on their mercy. Wrapping up, the characters have a few decisions to make. Do they turn back or press on? What do they do with Mikan, assuming that they know he's the traitor? What do they do with the body of Petty Officer Ryback? Do they use the sending stone to contact Boson Tartot with news of Mikan's treachery and Petty Officer Ryback's death? If the characters use the sending stone to contact Tartot, she commands them to wait for backup. If the characters heed this command, Tartot arrives a day later aboard the flighty foundling. The Spelljammer Academy adventure series concludes in Behold, Hakatha. Character advancement. The characters advance to 4th level upon completing this adventure. REALMSPACE. REALMSPACE is a system made up of 8 worlds orbiting a yellow sun, as shown on the accompanying map. The distances on the map and in the REALMSPACE table assume the use of a ship equipped with a spelljamming helm. This will be explained in more detail in the How Spelljamming Works section of the Astral Adventurer's Guide, soon to be released. All the worlds of REALMSPACE have creatures and plants of one sort or another living on them. Toril is the most Earth-like, while the outer worlds, Glyth, Garden and Hakatha, are on the other end of the spectrum. REALMSPACE planets, their world type and their distance to the outer edge of the system. Anadia, a spherical Earth body, 31.5 days travel. Coliar, spherical air body, 31 days travel. Toril, spherical earth body orbited by one moon, Saloon, and an asteroid cluster, the Tears of Saloon, 30 days travel. Karpri, a spherical water body, 29 days travel. Chandos, spherical water body, 28 days travel. Glyth, a spherical ringed earth body orbited by 3 moons, 22 days travel. Garden, a cluster of 7 earth bodies held together by a colossal plant orbited by 11 moons, 20 days travel. Hakatha, a dish-shaped water body orbited by 2 moons, 16 days travel. The following locations are depicted on the map of realm space. Anadia. The surface of Anadia is an expanse of badlands and dry washes except at its poles, where the land flattens out into gently rolling fertile hills dotted with forests and patches of grassland. Communities of halflings occupy the polar areas, while the barren wastes are populated by monstrous predators and scavengers. Coliar. This gas giant has a multitude of earth and water islands swirling around its turbulent winds. These islands are occupied mostly by Aarakocra, lizard folk and dragons. The lizard folk in particular are accustomed to trading with spacefaring folk. Toril. Toril, the locale of the Forgotten Realms setting, is the most populous world in realm space and home to some of the most powerful individuals in this system. It has regular and prosperous ties with the various nations and factions of Wildspace. Toril's single large moon, Saloon, has a breathable atmosphere and is occupied by isolated groups of inhabitants. Toril's space-dwelling communities generally congregate on a cluster of asteroids that trail behind Salooni at the same orbit. This cluster, called the Tears of Saloon, has numerous settlements. The Rock of Braal, as described in the soon-to-be-released Astral Adventurer's Guide, could be one of the many asteroids that form the cluster. Karpri. This water world has ice caps at the poles and vegetation-choked waters in its equatorial region. In between, on either side of the equatorial zone, are bands of featureless ocean, nothing but water as far as the eye can see. Most of the planet's indigenous creatures are aquatic and dwell in the tropical Sargasso, since the planet has no land masses that can support life. Chandos. Chandos is a large water world with thousands of floating islands that often collide with one another, making these locations less than ideal for permanent settlements. Beneath the islands, in the depths of Chandos, live all sorts of bioluminescent aquatic creatures. Glyth. Spell-jamming ships known as nautiloids, as described in the soon-to-be-released Astral Adventurer's Guide, patrol the space within 100 miles of Glyth and hide between the planet's 3 moons. This is not surprising because mind flayers are the undisputed masters of Glyth. The planet's air smells like it came from a charnel house, but it is not poisonous. The surface of the planet is a desolate wasteland, but beneath the crust is a labyrinth of subterranean caves inhabited by mind flayer colonies. Garden. Garden is a cluster of 7 planetoids inside a common air envelope, each of them linked to others by the roots of an unimaginably large plant, sometimes referred to as Yggdrasil's child. Wild space travelers sometimes come to Garden to restock their food, water, and air. Garden is a refuge for spacefaring pirates, who hide their spell-jamming ships in a maze of passageways that run between Yggdrasil childs and the planetoids, and might do the same in the craters and canyons of any of Garden's 11 moons. Hakatha. Hakatha is a disk of water floating in space, with a single larger mountain called the Spindle jutting from its center. The water disk tapers at the edge to form a rim. The spindle is 200 miles across at its base, and tapers to a peak 1,000 miles above the surface of the water. The caverns inside the spindle are home to 5 warring subspecies of beholder,